Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Brothers and sisters, we're going to do this in two ways, inshallah. If you have a question for our two scholars on the stage, on my right, Dr. Hatem Al-Haj, and on my left, Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan, then please text your name, the speaker's name that you want to address your question, and text it to 81551 Dawah. 81551 Dawah. 815-513-2924. And I think that should be up on the screen also. And in addition to that, we will also have a microphone in the audience. And actually, we're going to begin with a question from the audience. So where is the microphone? And the volunteer with the microphone. Brother Atif has the microphone. And since a brother raised his hand, please, if you can give the microphone to our uncle. Now, before you ask the question, please state your name. And your question should be a question, not a statement, and not a comment, but a question. And please try to be straight to the point, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Wasim Khan. My question is, what is Muslim community, and it's a sincere question, I'm not challenging or asking a rhetorical question, doing about conflict resolution, which is our burning issue for last few years. I don't have to relate the details of that. Are there any significant efforts going on here in the United States or many other countries, Muslim countries, which have a lot of resources? And it's not a sarcastic question either, so please do not think I'm trying to be sarcastic. For instance, in this country, and here I might add, during the Cold War years, there were big departments of peace studies, which have now that trend has declined and almost insignificant, you know. And there's a lot of information research done into how to, before any conflict escalates to a point where it becomes irreversible, de-escalate it. So and I see that, at least apparently, that doesn't seem to be any effort on the surface, but maybe some effort is going on
Would you like your question to be addressed to anyone?
Anyone who would be interested in enlightening us, that'll be great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Hatem Al-Haj, would you like to address the brother's question?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. I would like to know a little bit more about what your question, or just inquire about conflict resolution in which sense. You're talking about conflict within the Muslim countries, or you're talking about, for instance, the phenomenon of terrorism and how we resolve conflict between the West and the East, or in which sense?
Okay, so conflict resolution's first basic premise is that the conflict is natural, it happens all the time. And I think there was a very great presentation earlier about domestic conflict, you know. But here we're talking about conflict resolution, and I may have to, I wanted to avoid that, you know, that what we are seeing right now happening in the heart of the Muslim world, you know, how we're treating each other. And I'm not saying that naturally we are somehow demons or monsters who want to do this, but it is happening. It's incontrovertible, it cannot be denied, you know. And thousands and hundreds of thousands of Muslims are victims of that, you know. So it seems to me that it'll be obvious that somewhere, some effort will be going on how to institutionally, I'm not asking some big leader come up and say, oh, I'll resolve all the conflicts and everything will be peace and tranquility. So there has to be an institutionalized, consistent effort. My question was really if you guys are aware of there is some effort going on, maybe a Muslim university or something in Indonesia, maybe in Malaysia, maybe in Saudi Arabia, Gulf countries, I don't know, in Africa and Sudan, I don't know, somewhere, you know. If there is any effort going on, I just want for my own satisfaction, because I'm trying to make such an effort here in New Jersey, you know. I wrote actually a paper on state of war prevention about 20 years back, and I don't want to brag about, you know, obviously nothing has happened. I put it on the website, there are thousands of hits on it, people read it.
I understand.
But anyway, please, thank you. Yeah.
I get it now. Yeah. In terms of the departments that are working on conflict resolution and ways to resolve conflict, whether these are domestic conflicts or international conflicts. In many Muslim countries, I think in a lot of Muslim countries, there are such departments. And there is a lot of work that is being done on the intellectual level in terms of studying conflicts and their root causes and their best ways to manage them. However, the question whether there is a political will to resolve those conflicts, and certainly in the Muslim countries, post-colonial era, we have had a lot of challenges to have righteous governance and representative regimes. It is obvious throughout the Muslim countries that we're having challenges in this regard, that the governance of our countries is not really righteous. There is a lot of corruption, and there is also a lack of representation of the general population in those governments. So this work just requires more effort to bring about this righteous governance and the fighting of corruption and all of that. Intellectually, I think that there are a lot of people doing a lot of good work, but in order for this good work to materialize, you need to have a political will to make it materialize, and that to some extent is lacking. And hopefully in the future, Muslims will come to the realization that the status quo cannot carry on anymore, and that we will have to just snap out of it, because it has become detrimental to the present, and it is also detrimental to the future of our ummah. So people are coming to this realization. The status quo, inshallah, will not continue. Be hopeful, do your best, reach out to the people to also help out and do their best in this regard, and pray that something good comes out of it, inshallah.
Inshallah, if we can keep the questions coming. If you have a question, feel free to text. And I'm going to request relevant questions, inshallah, that are worthy to be answered. If a question you have in mind that you think is not appropriate for this platform, then please avoid that. A question from the sister, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. We learned that the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam promises a reward for fathers who raise a daughter well, or more than one daughter. So I was wondering, is there a responsibility on the father towards the daughters that is more than what is towards the sons? And is there a certain responsibility that falls on the father and not on the mother, and therefore the reward is for the father and not for the mother?
Is that question directed to any specific speaker?
No.
In that case, I will give that question to Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan.
Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. I wish that all the questions would go this way. I'm just sitting as just to witness, inshallah. To be brief, there's no preference when it comes to giving more attention. It's different ways of upbringing, if it's correct to say. Since men are different than women, so the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ to give more virtue with regards to raising the daughters, because people, even at the time of the Arab, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, people would rather have boys than girls. But to be lenient, to witness where the girl's supposed to be raised to be and what the men's supposed to be raised to be. So if a man is raised to be tough and facing the world and so on, then the way to raise him should be slightly different than the way that we raise the mothers of the futures and the future and so on and so forth. But definitely from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is more reward in raising the daughters, because sometimes it's against the desire of some of the parents where they want to have boys and so on. And as far as the rights of the mother and the rights of the son, if a person is married, if I heard this correct, the rights of the mother, of course, comes first. And when we talk about rights, we're not talking about the goodly living that a person would have with his wife. We're talking about rights. And rights is when it's time of dispute. So when there's a dispute, then we refer to the rights. Otherwise, the norm is the husband is kind to the wife and he's kind to the mother and everybody. And he has the ability, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the ability that he will please all of them. And as Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, when he was asked by someone that his mother is asking him to divorce his wife. So the answer of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah was more or less the meaning, أطع أمك, obey your mother and don't divorce your wife. Right? So that means what? It's not a dilemma. It's just basically extra kind to the mother, that she, with the extreme kindness to her, she would not really get stuck on that point, and do not divorce your wife unless it's a religious reason for that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Jazakallahu khair, Sheikh. One question from the questions that have been texted. Are mental disorders and major depression influenced by shaitan? Dr. Hatem Al-Haj.
Alhamdulillah.
I was hoping they'll put another question.
Keep in mind also that I'm a physician, so it's,
So should we move the question?
so let Sheikh Ibrahim answer.
No, sorry.
The shaitan is there, and the shaitan can cause harm to people for sure, and we know that. Allah told us that, and Allah told us that He wants to give grief to the believers. But when there is the idea here is, could it be related to the shaitan? Yes, maybe. But how do you approach a mental illness? Well, when someone becomes mentally ill, where will you take them? Certainly, there is plenty of spiritual power that should be recruited to fight that mental illness, should be stimulated, should be brought to the surface to fight that mental illness. To sit down and talk to a sheikh would be a great idea. If he is learned and wise, he may have very great advice for you to fight off that mental illness. That does not mean that you will go to, psychic, or that you will go to a fortune teller, or you go to someone with some superstitious beliefs to take care of your mental illness. You will go to a psychologist, you will go to a psychiatrist, you will seek help through the regular channels. Along with this, you are trying to recruit, to procure, to bring out that spiritual power that you have internally. And to have someone help you bring it out is advisable. But you are, at the same time, seeking medical help, because these issues are medical conditions. Now, medicine is not helping anymore, and you have been seeking medical help. There has not been any progress, and you want to basically get rid of the possible position. That also should not be taken superstitiously. There is a lot that you can do yourself to get rid of the influences of the shaitan by the recitation of Al-Fatiha, Surah Ayat Al-Kursi, Surah Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq, Al-Falaq, Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Nas, recitation of the Quran, helping someone, asking someone of your brothers or sisters to recite for you. You want to ask the Imam of the Masjid to recite for you, that is also fine. He is also your brother. Let him recite for you, and seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to get the bad influences of the shaitan away from you.
Please keep the questions coming in, and inshallah, if we can put up the number on the screen for the brothers and sisters to text their question. The next question that was texted in, this question is being directed, inshallah, to Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan. What should a son do if he wants to move out of the country or states in order to have a better job and life, but parents are against it because they're overprotective about their son? What does Islam say about this, Sheikh?
Alhamdulillah. First, with these types of questions, an individual should approach someone of knowledge. Each case is unique. There's work to be done. What is the exact situation, what's happening? But in general terms, if, according to the question, he wants to move out for a better job. And what a better job versus being with the parents. Obedience of the parents is something that is part of our deen, to please them, and to witness and to see the great rewards by being close to them. This is part of the deen. We have even people that at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, like Uwais al-Qarni and others, when they did not leave their parents and to go to see the Prophet ﷺ, just to be with their parents. And the story of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu with his mother and so on. So a general advice, definitely to be with the parents. This is what needs to be done. And whoever leaves something for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would replace it by something better. This is in general. And this is what the focus of the person should be, not to make them upset, because this is part of seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And if you leave something of materialistic things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to please the parents, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would replace it definitely with what is best. As the athar, which is, some had mentioned that it's mawquf, not to the Prophet ﷺ, man taraka shay'an lillah, awadahu Allah khayran min. Whoever leaves something for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would replace it by something better. Allahu Akbar.
Inshallah, keep your questions coming in. If you can text those questions, that would be highly appreciated. We are living in a day and age of technology, so let us try to use it, inshallah ta'ala. The brother in the middle, Brother Atif, is standing by you. Please keep your question brief and do mention your name before asking your question.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hatem Al Haj. This question is for Sheikh Hatem. I was distressed the other day to hear from one of my colleagues who works in a school that they were encouraging people, parents of the children that go to the school, not to vaccinate their children, because they thought it was unbeneficial, but also because they thought it was haram. So I was hoping maybe if you can sort of shed some light on the vaccine issue with regards to Islamic opinion on it. Thanks. Jazakallah khair.
Shukran. Dr. Hatem Al-Haj.
Alhamdulillah, salatu wasalam. Not beneficial, non-beneficial, that needs a medical answer. And I don't know if we are supposed to be taking that role here on the stage. But haram, why haram? I just want to know why haram. Because I don't want to argue with someone in the crowd about whether it's beneficial or non-beneficial. I just want to say that 99% of the experts said that vaccines are beneficial. And there is, you will not get that sense if you Google vaccines and you go to the website and basically get your information from the internet, then certainly you will not be able to judge this issue objectively. But it is not about, so-and-so said this or that. It is about who, the CDC, that is the Center for Disease Control, American Academy of Pediatrics, family physicians, so on. Those National Institute for Health, and all of those, organizations, respected organizations, and the people who work in them, they said that vaccines are beneficial. Now, if you do not give your child the vaccines, and vaccines turn out to be, if you do not give your child vaccines, they turn out to be beneficial, something bad happens to your child, you will regret it a little bit more because you followed 1% of, let's say that this 1% are also experts. Let us, for argument's sake, say that they are experts, but you followed 1% of the experts against the advice of 99% of the experts. Flip it. if the vaccines are harmful and you give your child vaccines, and God forbid something bad happens to your children, then you will at least say to yourself, I followed the advice of 99% of the experts. So that is from a logical viewpoint, and I'm not going to get into the details of why they are beneficial and so on. From an Islamic standpoint, I don't know why they're haram, but basically to seek medicine, the Prophet ﷺ said, من تصبح بسبع تمرات عجوة من تمر المدينة لم يصبه سحر يومه هذا أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. So whoever eats for breakfast 7 dates of the dates of Medina, you know, he will not be harmed by ailment, and he will not be harmed by sorcery. So this means what? It means that preventative medicine, to take medicine for prevention, is also good. And if you don't understand what the hadith means, please don't rush to making judgments. You don't understand it because you don't understand it. But we could talk outside about what the hadith means and the correct understanding of the hadith, because there is a context that we need to understand. Someone may say, so it's very easy, I'll eat 7 dates every day in the morning. Just believe that this is an authentic hadith, and believe that this means that you could do things proactively to prevent harm. And that's my point.
Jazakallah khair. Some of you might have heard me chuckle because I wasn't here last year. But one thing I was told when I, contacted the brothers and said, well, how was the convention? And they had mentioned one of the highlights of the convention was during the Q&A session, this very question coming up, alhamdulillah. And it does seem like it comes up quite common. So I would ask the AMJA Dawah brothers if you can put up the video of these Q&A sessions, inshallah, it might be beneficial. The next question will be directed to Sheikh Ibrahim, and the next 2 questions, and I think we can somehow answer both of them together. Please elaborate on the aura of a woman in public, in front of her family and in front of her friends, and what is the ruling on makeup on public, or I guess in public, or in front of anyone besides the husband.
No. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. First of all, to answer these types of questions with different backgrounds, and I won't get into the usul and the foundation, but we all agree that we need to have this submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to put that forward before our own desires and likings and environments and our ways of being brought up and so on. Total submission. And that's come with the subject of al-hijab. For a Muslim woman, there is the maharim, and there is the women, and there is the public. So friends and so on, we're talking about men and women. For women, there's a level of awra here, which is the normal, that a woman would be with among women, and I guess the question is referring to facing men. In public or friends, we're assuming that there's no friends as male friends. Relatives, those who are not mahram, they are considered to be in the category of the public, right? So non-mahram men, for a woman, she's forbidden to show any of her beauty. And this is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. And the ayah in Surah Al-Nur and the ayah in Surah Al-Ahzab, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbidding the women from revealing any of their zina. إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. And I won't get into the differences of opinions if the question is towards me. The whole entire body of the woman is awra. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma in the ayah in Surah Al-Nur, when he said al-wajh wal-ghiffayn, the face and the hands, in Surah Al-Ahzab he said يُغَطِّينَ وُجُوهَهُنْ, they cover their faces and they show one eye. So the same person said 2 things, one surah was after the other. So if we take that opinion that this was later, so the order is for them to cover totally. But even for those who said it's permissible to show the face, they said إِذَا ظَهَرَ الْفُسَّاقُ فِي بَلَدٍ وَجَبَ عَلَيْهَا أَن تُغَطِّيَ وَجْهَهَا. If the wicked, evil people that are spread in a town, then she should cover her face, because comes with the hijab is not a piece of clothing, But comes with it lowering the gaze and being concealed, being away from the eyes of men, any forms of beauty, and the conditions of it, not to be tight and not to be transparent, and not to shape basically the body, and not to be adornment in itself, not imitating the ways of the disbelievers, because this is an exclusive thing to the husband. The zina, the adornment of the wife, is an exclusive thing to the husband, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And that should be sufficient. And that in Surah Al-Ahzab, يا أيها النبي قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين يدنين عليهن من جلابيبهن. O Prophet of Allah, say to your wives and your daughters and وَنِسَاءِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and the believing women. And this is by itself enough honor for every single Muslim woman, that she's been there with the Prophet's wives and the daughters and so on, to bring down from on top their cloaks and so on. So makeup, of course, if it's something that is not harmful or so, again exclusive to the husband and not to be shown to the public, which is basically other than her maharim. Wallahu a'lam.
Shukran, Sheikh. We're going to go to a question. Sister, you had a question. Please state your name and your question, and to which Sheikh, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Almas, and I wanted to ask about, so yesterday we talked about how like there's Sheikh YouTube, right? So there's this video I once saw regarding this hadith about 70,000 who will enter Jannah without having to go, like without any sort of pain or something of that sort on the day of Qiyamah. And I wanted to like learn more about it, because I vaguely remember it, and I thought that it would be beneficial for the audience.
Before because I promised the people, can I seek your permission and the permission of Sheikh Ibrahim to just take 5 minutes to wrap up the issue of pedophilia that was raised yesterday, because I don't like to leave any loose ends. When you address shubha, you just kill it or not address it. And the issue of pedophilia, I'm sorry, but it causes me great pain to feel that someone may have some doubt in their heart, or someone may question the status of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or have the slightest, concern about the conduct of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, Aisha radiallahu anha, when Khadija died and the Prophet wanted to marry, keep in mind, can I stand up, or because I don't really. Keep in mind that the Prophet stayed married to one woman who was 15 years his senior from age 25 until age 50, and he did not marry any other woman until she died. That means what? It should mean something to you. He waited until 25 to marry, uncommon. He married a woman that was 15 years his senior and stayed with her alone for 25 years until he became 50. Now, the Prophet was from the nobility of Quraysh, and he was not somebody who would not be able to marry, who just did this out of lack of means. And keep that in mind too. Then after Khadija died, Khawla bint Hakim, the wife of Uthman ibn Maz'un, came to the Prophet ﷺ and said to him, "Why don't you marry?" And then he asked her, whom should I marry? She said to him, "If you want a bikr, then you marry Aisha, the daughter of the most beloved person to you, Abu Bakr. Or if you want a sayyib, a previously married woman, then you can marry Sauda bint Zam'a." The Prophet ﷺ ended up taking her advice and marrying both, Aisha and Sauda bint Zam'a. But this is a 50-year-old man. So to marry Aisha, given the authentic reports that we have, at age 6, and be contracted and wait for her 3 years, this is someone whose wife died. So to get contracted and wait for 3 years to consummate the marriage, this tells you what? Tells you something. And then to marry Aisha, who was someone that he will wait for, and Sauda, who's pretty old. You know, Sauda was pretty old. And not to marry someone like a 50-year-old who would want to marry someone who's 20, 25. He can consummate the marriage with her now, or 30 or something. And then it was suggested to him by Khawla, and then he said to her, okay, so talk to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. When Khawla went and talked to Roman, the mother of Aisha, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was present, keep in mind that Roman said to Khawla, the mother of Aisha said to Khawla, however, Aisha is already engaged. There is something to keep in mind here. However, Aisha is already engaged. She was engaged to Jubair ibn Mut'im ibn Adi. Jubair ibn al-Mut'im ibn Adi. She was already engaged to Jubair ibn al-Mut'im ibn Adi. And then Abu Bakr went to Mut'im ibn Adi. Mut'im ibn Adi at the time was not a Muslim. Came back and he basically felt that it was not appropriate to marry Aisha off to Jubair, who was not Muslim at the time, and felt no discomfort in breaking his promise or ending that engagement. Then no one in Quraysh said, look, he's marrying this girl. And then the consummation happened in Medina later, and no one of the Yahud said, look, he is consummating with this girl. Despite the fact that they said, look, every time he did something, they said, look, what is happening? And when he married Zainab bint Jahsh, they said, look, he's marrying the previous wife of his adoptee. So, but they did not, because it was pretty established. And we talked yesterday about the age of marriage in one state being 14 and in the other state being 18, the minimum age for consensual sex in California in 1800 being 10 years, and the change in cultures, change across different times and across different places, even different states. And we talked about puberty and how it starts at 8 and ends by 14, and menarche ends by 16. And we talked about the range, and we talked about how a 9-year-old could be stronger than a 14-year-old and heavier and so on. Keep in mind, the Aisha in particular, there is a report in Bukhari from Anas radiallahu anhu that Aisha was carrying a water skin in the Battle of Uhud that is 1 year after consummation with the Prophet ﷺ. 1 year. The Battle of Uhud happened in the 3rd year after Hijrah. Consummation happened in the 2nd year after Hijrah. 1 year, she was carrying a water skin on her back, running around, pouring water in the mouths of the the wounded Muslims. Can you carry a water skin and run with it? You as a man. If I carry a water skin, I will not be able to walk with it. So she was mature enough to be able to do this just 1 year after the consummation of the marriage. There are many other points that you could stop at. However, this is the one thing that I wanted to tell you. And I know that many of you will not agree with me. But this hadith, if you can't wrap up your head around this hadith, according to the majority of the scholars, except for a few scholars, a few notable scholars, such as Imam Ibn Taymiyyah and others, said that the hadith that are reported in Bukhari and Muslim are qat'i al-thubut, meaning they are certain in their transmission. But for the vast majority of the usulis, the hadith, the singular reports are speculative in their transmission. So someone who came to Islam through certainty should not leave it on the basis of doubt or suspicion. Meaning what? How did you arrive here through certainty? There has to be God who created this. And God has to have communicated the message to us. In Surah Al-Qasas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the believers, said to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, say to the disbelievers, قُلْ فَأْتُوا بِكِتَابٍ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ هُوَ أَهْدَى مِنْهُمَا أَتَّبِعْهُ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Come up with a book from Allah that is more guided than them, the Torah and the Quran, that I may follow it. So there is none. And then when you compare the Quran and the Torah, and you will find particularly this issue and particularly other issues that we addressed yesterday, like multiple marriages, you will find no differences between the Quran and the Bible. So you came here through certainty. One singular report, if you can't wrap up your head around it, and you accept Islam as a da'i, if you let him accept Islam without accepting this one hadith, I will call him mubtada, meaning innovator. I'm sorry, I have to do this. Why? Because he is sort of creating a hole in the sunnah of in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, creating a hole in the structure, in the foundation structure of my deen. Because the sunnah has to be protected as a body. The entire sunnah has to be protected as a body. Without it, you will never be able, you will never know how to pray or how to make wudu or how to do anything. There is nothing about the dhuhr being 4 rak'ahs in the Quran. So you will never be able to do anything. So if you attempt to discredit one singular report that came through the two authentic collections of Bukhari and Muslim, then that is a grave, dangerous bid'ah. But at the end of the day, we're also saying that these reports were reported by a few people in every layer of the chain of narrators. There is a logical possibility that one of them erred. There is a logical possibility that one of them erred. There are those people who are trying to come up with reports from the historical reports about the age of Aisha at the time the Prophet ﷺ married her, compared to the age of Asma and compared to the age of Fatima. You know, there are some reports that Surah Al-Qamar was revealed. Those are not established reports, and they do not sort of meet up the hadith of Bukhari and Muslim by any means according to the scholars of Islam. But from a historical perspective, when you're addressing non-Muslims, when you address skeptics historically, Aisha may have been historically based on these reports. There are reports that Asma was 10 years Aisha's senior, and that Asma was 27 when Aisha married the Prophet ﷺ, based on the fact that she died in the year 73 after the Hijrah, and the historians agree that she died at the age of 100. So she was 27 when the Prophet married Aisha, and she was 10 years Aisha's senior. There are other reports about Aisha saying that Surah Al-Qamar was revealed when I was a young child in Mecca, and there are those mufassirin who said that Surah Al-Qamar was revealed in the year 5 after Hijrah. So from a historical perspective, those people who cannot come to terms, particularly people that are coming into Islam, and you know the Prophet accepted the Islam of Thaqif without zakah and without jihad. But because at the time when you're inviting people to Islam, you're inviting them to La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Do not let an issue like this get in the way. We know what we teach when we teach Orthodox Islam, but leave the crack open in the door to tell the people that you accept Islam because of the certainty, the necessity that to believe in Islam, the necessity of the presence of God, the necessity of the presence of messengers, the necessity that, but after studying Islam and comparing it to other religions, to accept it as the one true religion that actually came down from God. Do not let one singular report stand in the way of your conversion to Islam. Accept Islam, and then we will talk about it. And if you accepted Islam and continue to not accept that one singular report, according to the vast majority of the scholars, you will be mubtada and not kafir, which is a much better place to be at. Jazakumullah.